Hello and welcome to another jungle video, and in this one we are once more having a look at jungle differences, and this time with Kha'Zix, comparing a challenger player on a specific champion to a lower elo version. Except this time I had the idea of, instead of making it a little bit random, that I would choose players that both have 1,000,000 points. Very often people feel like they are very good with a champion but then stuck in silver, stuck in gold, what have you. If you are really truly good at certain champions, you will automatically climb. And Kha'Zix is very much popular in high elo, mid elos, whatever elo you might play, you are likely to see this champion. So I will compare and contrast two games from these two respective players, both with 1,000,000 points, obviously separated by a lot of LP. And if you do enjoy these comparative videos, as well as all the other jungle guides we have available, please consider leaving a like and of course subscribing. Don't forget Patreon has coaching VODs, coaching signups, and more. And now without hesitation, let's begin. Okay, first up, we are going to be having Tanu almost basically at 1,000,000 points. I think he's at like 996, not including any unknown smurfs. And then of course we have a gold for 1,000,000 points Kha'Zix player. He's close enough to silver in terms of game and MMR, which means if you're looking to get gold, this is what you have to beat. And if you happen to be a Kha'Zix or champion savant, or so you think, and you're stuck in this kind of elo, pay very close attention to the differences that can make you take that next step into plat, diamond, and so on. Runes, as you would have seen, are slightly similar, at least on the first page. Secondary page, I definitely recommend your Futures Market, Cosmic Insight, and Booties. They have the best win rate. But in lower to mid elos, having raw stats is very useful, although the Transcendence and the Nimbus Cloak I'm not a fan of. I think you should either look at Inspiration or at least look at the Absolute Focus in Gathering the Storm. It'll definitely help you in these lower elo games. However, for the first clears, I would like to directly compare our gold for 1,000,000 point Mastery Kha'Zix with another well-known 1,000,000 point Mastery Kha'Zix, Gurren. This is simply because you can see very much a direct comparison between how they do Grom, Blue, and Wolves. Notice the kiting, notice the auto cancels using the spells in between, and notice how the time difference adds up even in the first quadrant. 225, Gurren has dragged the Wolves across the mid lane and is already well on his way to Raptors. Our gold 4,000,000 point Kha'Zix player is struggling to maintain that tempo even with the same amount of points. As they both head to the Raptors, remember you can look up Polaris' channel or simply go watch replays of your favorite challenger player or one trick. Head into the practice tool and copy their first clear techniques. I'm just highlighting here the small differences that can add up even in the first quadrant that prevents you from accomplishing your game plan. Gurren does take a little bit longer on the Raptors. He could have probably afforded to kite a little less, but wanted to place a ward to protect him against any Qiyana invades. Our gold jungler has no such issues or concerns and simply goes to the red buff much like Gurren and finishes only about 1 to 2 seconds afterwards. If that ward was not placed, then definitely that lead would be greater. Please remember as you go for these first clears that you are always assessing your game plan accurately. Too many of these Kha'Zixes that I scouted in silver and gold with 1,000,000 points simply did 5 camps, simply did 6 camps. They were not thinking dynamically about what they wanted to accomplish in terms of matchups and ganking. And that's why you're seeing right now Tanu do a very different clear. He has decided to go for a reverse clear. Not only can he start on the bottom lane with a better leash, but he can also match the same side that the Viego, the enemy jungler, is pathing towards. This means he can protect himself against a potential invade, he can set himself up for a counter gank bottom side, he can also set himself up, should he have prior, for a nice bottom side crab and double crab denial. Obviously this will take a little longer, so when he's finished the Raptors, he decides he is going to shoot up to the top crab, because very clearly he does not have bottom lane prior, he has a Vladimir mid lane, and for just absolute clarity, the two games we're looking at will have some similarities, and I will go from different sections for each one, so you can of course compare what they're doing by the same point, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, and so on. And in this case, for Tanu, the Vladimir will suffer greatly, the Cassian will become giga-fed, and he really will have to carry this game. Match histories for the gold game as well as this game will be in the link in the description below. But what happens when you reverse clear and the original plan doesn't work out? Don't go and die for the bottom crab, take your top crab nice and peacefully as he did, look at top lane who will not expect it, and all of a sudden, hey, we get another kill on the top laner, which happens to be Bwipo, but it's very important to note that that first blood didn't necessarily change the early game phase, and the Graves will end up doing a lot of damage, and of course our Kha'Zix lost his flash, which is why he went for a more conservative clear. But as he'll go back to base here, I do think going for a buff grump is a really good idea for Kha'Zix looking to get action early, and if there's really nothing panning out and you decide to match the enemy jungler, you can always reverse clear exactly like he just did. Now in theory, he could of course go and try and counter jungle the second Raptors, the second Krugs, but this is highly risky because if the Viego stays bottom lane and if he's taking his Krugs, then all of a sudden the Kha'Zix is going to lose out on a lot of bottom pressure. He's gone back to base and now he's running straight to the bottom lane. You must remember, if you decide to gank your lane or camp a lane, you have to do so within the flow of protecting your house. Cannot afford to lose all your second spawn camps. You need to make pressure for the enemy jungler. And in this situation, because the bottom lane is overstaying with no sums and they just had an all-out fist fight trying to kill your bottom lane, You can afford to spend your time shattering the situation and, abusing the fact that they disrespect you. Obviously, the Viego showed up for a lane counter gank, but this doesn't always matter if you play properly. In this case, in and out, use your spells, move away, use your E sparingly and intelligently, and if the karma doesn't really understand how Kha'Zix works, make sure you get that auto WQ for maximum burst damage, and then of course you have an auto attack and an E to finish her off. From this you can thin the wave out and leave it as is, there's no need to corrupt it even more, move on to your Krugs and secure those. And we also know that the Viego after this untimely demise will head to the top side, that's where his second spawn camps will show up, and the only reason he was here for a counter gank is because he did that grump last. It is very, very important that you understand this. If the Viego did a 5 camp plus a crab, that gives us 24 CS. That's when he ganked bottom lane. If he disappears and you go for this gank thinking he has to go back to base, because he did his grump, that's all well and good. But if you go for this now cleanup kill on the bottom lane and Viego shows up with 28, you know straight up that he did his grump before floating back down to the mid lane. Which means after you've killed him, held the wave and taken your Krugs, that he is on his second spawn Krugs and Raptors. Very important tracking, because as we jump over to our silver game after his first clear, and of course both junglers here, Lethality and Harvest, Not Conqueror and Gore Drinker, I wanted similar playstyles in this early game, decides instead of going for perhaps an invade or whatever from his 5 camp, to go and gank the top lane. It's a pretty standard play, it's a nice job, they're able to get a kill. The issue is, and here you can see the big difference, it's not only by ganking to stack your harvest, it's not only by fighting and applying pressure to get yourself fed and snowball, you must control your camps and you must understand what the enemy jungler wants to do and path towards in order to deny them the ability to basically double your CS. And in this situation, you know straight up after that gank that the Shyvana's on that top crab, which means if you decide to go to your Krugs and maybe repeat gank and spam gank the top lane, the Shyvana is going to move on down and take the bottom crab as well. And this is where Kha'Zix is so interesting because yes, you can afford to do a kind of spam ganky hang around a lane, but if you've watched Agurin and other Kha'Zixes that focus on 6 and basically, controlling your experience is just as important. The wave is nice and juicy. You understand you're getting double crabbed here. Taking the Krugs makes absolute sense if you basically are giving that up, but you must go back to base and protect your second spawn grump. You must go back to base and ensure that you have control of the bottom side as well. That's where all your experience is invested. Repeat ganking into your top lane here while the cannon wave is pushed towards your tower with the Vi top lane is really just a bad decision, and not only does this show bad choices by a Kha'Zix player who should know better, it's just bad jungling. The reason why it's bad jungling is because the Shyvana started bottom side from the leash, which means the second camps of her Grump and Wolves are going to be spawning in a long time. If the Shyvana started top side and went down, you know that at around 410 or so, you're going to have Grump up, you're going to have Wolves up, so hanging around to counter jungle her blue side while she takes yours, and then you gank the top lane again, that would be a good strategy. But instead, hanging around top lane, trying to really get this kill, even if you do get it, which he does, that's fine, but the Shyvana's taking your whole blue side. You have to understand this. What's hilarious about this is obviously given that I've said this, you would kind of expect that your blue side is gone. So what should you do in this situation? Well, we have a second spawn Raptor camp, we might as well try and secure that, and then potentially look to gank mid lane. It's a Victor vs Heimer, so it's kind of tough, but if you're confident about killing the Shyvana in her blue side jungle or enemy jungler, if you win that matchup, you have 1,000,000 points, you know what you're doing micro-mechanically, supposedly, then you can perhaps get your second spawn camps, you can take hers, you can kill her, you can gank the top lane once more, you can flex into your second Krugs, Herald, red buff, go back to base, do the bottom side. All of the world are available to you, but instead the Shyvana goes out of base knowing you're not even going to think about this, takes your Raptors, is going to take your Krugs, you have nothing on the bottom side. He wants to gank mid, but that's an absolute terrible assessment because the Victor needs to go back to base. He holds away for a little bit, realizes Raptors on top side are also gone, chases the Shyvana assuming she probably went into a blue side jungle, which she did, but all the camps are gone already, and now there's no other choice but to gank top side again. And the thing is, you're going to feel compelled here to run to the mid lane and protect your blue side. The problem is when you don't impact bottom lane, when you don't impact mid lane, you're coin flipping them. Are they winning? Are they losing? And I've seen more than enough time in coaching, even in this elo, even in silver, that laners when they group for dragons will definitely invade you if they literally see you walk towards your blue. Your bot lane is not in a position to help, you die, you lose your whole blue side once more. Now what our player does very well here is out of base, take a few snacks, get level 6, evolve that R first, and go straight to the Herald, and now you can counter jungle the top side of the Shyvana, while she is in fact ganking that bottom lane. The problem is, she has double your CS, one dragon has affected the bottom lane drastically, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm more likely to trust spam ganking that lane than a Vi top laner. The problem is, and this is a good decision also to gank top lane, that's great, and he activates the Herald. He says, you know, I need to do an equal and opposite play. We can get some plates, I can infuse myself a little bit, I can infuse the Vi a bit more. Yeah, but you're not tracking the Shyvana. You know, if she does your whole blue side dragon and her red side ganks bottom lane pushes the wave, where's she going next? There's literally nothing on the bottom side. It is a desolate island of disease and pestilence. It is a dead ecosystem destroyed by overpopulation in a jungle by a gigantic dragon, not by the void insect. Yeah, that means she's coming topside. There's nowhere else for her to go, and of course you took everything, but you overstay your welcome, and thus you die once more, and then she takes your Krugs and Raptors. It's also worth noting that he rushed the Duskblade instead of the Ghostblade and wasn't even thinking about Edge of Night against a Heimerdinger comp, and that just sits funny to me. So what did our Challenger jungler do after that first phase that compares to our Gold 4 hero in the same time period? Well, our Dark Harvest Challenger Kha'Zix also kinda wants to spam gank a lane and abuse flashless targets to basically get his damage up. But we know the Viego's topside sequencing down. We know the Viego will anticipate us sequencing up, which means he won't really want to walk into the Kha'Zix's jungle topside, losing, and then die. So you call a bluff, you take your Krugs, you take the random crab, you wait a little bit in the river for the bottom lanes to start fisting again, you wait, patiently, yeet in once the commitment has been made, and grab yourself some more snacks. This is what it looks like when you control, track, anticipate, call the bluff, and then do exactly what our gold Kha'Zix wanted to do, except you consider the enemy jungler, which means now they are following you, and honestly have no idea how to counter it. Hopefully this small example can show you the difference in pathing brains that really need to be combined with your mechanical prowess, although if you're mechanically good enough and you understand the win conditions of a champion, especially Kha'Zix, you should be able to climb, so there's a lot of little things going on here. If you're a little peepo sus that the Viego might have taken your blue side or might be on the Herald because you're not exactly sure where he is, after base, just go straight to that objective. If he shows a little bit on a bottom lane ward on the bottom side or their behavior changes and bot pings it, you know that's an absolutely free objective. Take it first, take the crab, fall back to your blue side, control your camps as well as the objectives, but do so in the right order. You'll notice our gold 4 Kha'Zix decided to do his Raptors in red first and then the Herald, but he kind of had to because he wasn't even level 6. There's always a domino effect, my friends. It starts from the first clear, it starts from your game plan, and it starts from your execution. If you see the enemy jungler has reset and places a ward in a bush that you have warded so you know he's there, and you see our Kha'Zix was heading towards the wolves, turn around, head for the counter gank. If the enemy jungler doesn't commit to this and it gives the top lane a false sense of security, you know what to do. Dish out some more, feed yourself back to base, get your Ghost Blade, make sure you have those plated steel caps because everybody likes a good auto attacker these days. And this is where the big difference comes in because of everything that he's done differently and more proactively and with better control. Out of base, yes, you might want to just do your red side and then lane gank bottom lane. Because this is the lane we've been investing to and this is the lane we really want to focus on, much like our Kha'Zix who gank top lane and then use Herald top lane, except if your mid laner dies to Viego, rotate to the situation, hold the mid wave, don't let the cannon die for free. Now we can do that. Ah, but wait, there's people moving bottom lane, TPs are happening. Don't do your Krugs, don't do your red and wait. Move immediately, your Kha'Zix, we want to stack that harvest, we have Ghostblade, we have a huge lead. Don't play around what should happen in theory, what should happen in draft. You have to play around what is actually happening on the map to get your leads into carry and climb. It doesn't really matter if the Vladimir should be Kassadin or if the Kassadin should be Vladimir. Who is beating who has prior when, who is roaming how. Read, react, adapt. I mean, you're playing Kha'Zix after all. Because you cut that wave and because you did so, we can now use the Herald, and this is a great Herald because everyone is dead. The enemy jungler is not able to rotate and cut you off. It is a free usage, it cannot be collapsed upon. You can afford to basically kill the ADC if they overstep once more. Again, notice the use of mechanics from the animations using WQ and autos interweavingly and in the correct way. I do have a full micro-mechanical breakdown of Kha'Zix. I will link that below, you can watch that. All of these things are very important to understand because if you don't do it properly, you can't execute on what he just did. From here, you can fall back down to their jungle, take all their stuff, and take the dragon. We know the Viego will be headed topside. This means that even though he has cash monies in his back pocket to spend, Bobby's TPN activity on the bottom side while it nets you a dragon does mean the Grave's got a few platings and a tower topside. It also means that you kind of want to protect those camps from being stolen to prevent any sort of comeback mechanics. Just however, remember, if the enemy team does exactly as we predict, use their gold reset advantage, you haven't spent yet, so you have to be insanely cautious. Use your in and out. Notice how he runs away, R's backing, goes in the karma, the Lucian helps get the kill. Use that R evolve once more, use your unseen passive threat, use your Q as it's up, use your W to slow properly. In and out, in and out, in and out. Do not overcommit. Focus the right target at a time. Don't try and E to the back line when there's two people in front of you. And if it looks doomed, if the enemy mid is really giga fed and you simply have to leave, leave. At 50 minutes, you go back to base. We have 103 CS, 704 KDA, Prowler's Claw completed, and we have a control ward. Let's now see how our Silver Plate does until the end of the early game at that 50-minute mark as well. As we saw him, his corpse was lying on the rift, he respawns, he goes to the bottom side, he is able to get some blue cams. We know that the Shyvana should be bottom side as well, given that in turn, the top side is now barren. For some reason, doesn't hit the plant to scout wards, walks into the tri-bush, tries to clear the control ward, wastes his ultimate, absolutely zero good usage out of this, and then decides to leave. And of course, the support dies after they just won and killed the ADC in the first place. Shyvana carries on going a little bit, he sees an opportunity, even though he's down 3 levels, is still able to use that ISO damage to kill her. He's able to Q mid-air while landing on top of the Shyvana. W is on cooldown, so we have to use our unseen passive auto attack, and then follow up with the W and autos to finish. But he's able to secure the shutdown, which is nice and juicy. There is a dragon available, but unfortunately there is a Swain mid lane, despite the fact that you ganked him, doing what you'd expect when you've taken his tower and he has nowhere else to go. He's gonna roam the map, he's gonna go to different lanes. Does a decent job leaving the situation, then yeeting back in to kill the Swain. Unfortunately, the Lucian has not followed and he dies under tower. Not the most fluid mechanics in terms of speed and execution, does show a little bit of variation in terms of how he's using them. Obviously, different scenarios require different needs and different orders of spells. From this death, the Shyvana is going to take his whole red side and collapse on the Vi, who's no doubtedly going to overpush, given the elo. From here, he's a bit everywhere. Instead of going straight to the dragon, starts the wolves, has to be called to the dragon, falls back to his blue side instead of going straight to counter jungle the Shyvanas, eventually does end up counter jungling the Shyvanas, and is able to get a kill or two in the process, but the problem is it's random, it's out of order, it's spaghetti pathing. If he does everything in the right order, you're more likely to be efficient, get ahead of time, and be in a better position to make plays, get assassination picks, present yourself an ability to counter jungle and push towers, take over the enemy's territory to snowball your advantage more so as a Kha'Zix. And a big problem is here, he's gone for the E evolve second, the W evolve with a 90% slow on isolated targets, even if they're a fast champion, will not allow them to leave a situation with your unseen passive slow, your W slow, as well as your raw damage output. He only reaches that second itemization spike at 18 minutes. Still is less CS than a challenger jungler, obviously that's going to be the case here, but the point is you're not using your time effectively and he's essentially 3 minutes behind tempo and the game state is just too negative for him to be able to carry. Compare this to the footage you've now been seeing of the challenger jungler doing exactly that same thing. It's a very big difference in terms of how you position yourself. Use your patience for those team fights, wait for those windows of opportunity, use your ultimate and W appropriately. And it all starts in those first 50 minutes. You need to execute with Kha'Zix with an assassin, or you're always playing from behind, and even though you will reach your damage profile, it won't really matter because it's just simply too much to overcome. For how to close out leads with assassin junglers, if you play that early game properly, for how to team fight and skirmish, I will leave links to my gameplay videos that explore this fully, as well as other tutorials on this channel. But there you have it, another jungle differences video. I hope you enjoyed and learned something. Please do leave a like, share, and comment if you did. Don't forget Patreon is linked below, the gameplay channel is linked below, the match histories are linked below, all the links are below. Remember to evolve as Kha'Zix intelligently, and as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.